At the March 23rd Lansing City Council meetings, Council heard requests from the leaser of the Lansing Shuffle and the UK-based Deep Green Data Center Company for selling city properties. Many residents spoke in opposition to these sales, and some spoke in support. Council debated the optics of taking a pay raise for their part-time positions, and they set a hearing for making changes to the metered parking rules. Welcome to What Lansing Council, a podcast transforming Monday night's Lansing City Council meetings into an enthralling recap. I am your host, Jill Dombrowski. And today, my very special guest is Judge Rosemarie Aquilina.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here, Judge.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Judge Rosemarie Aquilina has served on the 30th Circuit Court for Ingham County since her election in November of 2008. She is an adjunct professor at both the Michigan State University School of Law and the Thomas M. Cooley Law School. She has previously served on the oversight board for the Board of Water and Light and the City of Lansing's Elected Officers Compensation Commission. Thank you for all that you are doing.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's my privilege to be in Ingham County and serve it in many ways.
Amazing. I would first like to ask you, what would you like people to know about Lansing?
I love Lansing. I've been here, about 50 years. And I think Lansing, if you had to ask me to summarize it, it's commitment to greatness. And that's because we're the capital. And things go up and down in every community. But when Lansing, in any part of Ingham County, has a down, we always go upward and take care of it before it spirals to a position like Flint where you really can't crawl out from under it. Mm-hmm. And I think that the community as a whole feels that way, coming together in partnership for the greatness of Ingham County. Mm-hmm. There's great education, there's great places to eat, there's a lot of fun things to do, especially the city of Lansing has this commitment to bring in diverse events that bring people together. And it's not just the city, people from all over Michigan come, as well as from all parts of Ingham County, and that cohesiveness is why I wanted to raise my family here in this diverse, wonderful community.
Yeah. So at the end of last year, Council was reminded constantly by the citizens of a lawsuit that the city was bringing against some private property owners who were allowing folks to live in an encampment on their property. This was located on the Grand River, just of the north side of town. And the issue came before you in court, and the case was ultimately settled outside of court. Is that kind of accurate of how things?
Yes and no. It took a lot of getting there and saying I'm going to babysit this until we have a resolution. And when I said, because there was some issues that were raised about the payment and who was actually shipping people on this private land, mm-hmm. and all of that, parties had to come together. Okay. Because I said we're going to have an evidentiary hearing and open it all, and okay. I will make a decision. And I think neither side wanted that full record, maybe one side more than the other.
Okay.
I'm talking about this. My understanding is it's closed, no one's appealed me, and the parties are continuing to work together for better housing for the homeless, and there have been some issues, and constantly people are still emailing me because not everything's perfect. But I took it under my wing because for 3 years, homeless persons were placed in a private land area. They are all over our parks and other places that are public, mm-hmm. but they had been diverted to this place, and I did a visit because I wanted to see how long had they been there, who was there, was there contraband, is it a fire hazard, all of those things. Mm-hmm. I met the absolute nicest people. The cats there, and you can tell how people treat each other and animals by, when you approach an animal that's there, every single cat let me pet them. There were a few dogs who were, of course, protective of their owners, but again, didn't leap out. And the people were just very, very kind. And I entered many of the shelters that were created, mm-hmm. and asked if they needed help. Can I talk to them for a minute? Everyone was kind. They let me in. They were not rude. There was not anyone giving me the finger or saying, get out of here, or growling at me, or any of the things that we sometimes see people do, even in court.
Yeah.
They couldn't have been kinder. These are just people who are down on their luck, no place to go, nobody wants them.
Mm-hmm.
Shelters don't accept them because sometimes there's a male and a female, not married, but one's taking care of the other. They're not going to separate, and the shelter would separate them. There are some people who have addiction problems. We're not answering those addiction problems, and we should be.
Right.
There are people who just simply are down on their luck. They are not mean-spirited. They are not committing crimes. They just need some help. And where have we been? And so I said, I'm going to babysit this. They're not going over to the city and waiting in line for a long time only to be shunned away or left there all day because of the way they look or smell. And they haven't availed themselves of services that were claimed to be available because there's a lack of trust. So I said, we're all going to trust each other. We're going to come here. Week after week, they came. And I kept saying, if anybody's unhappy, you can get me off the bench. You can ask me to get off the case. You can appeal me. No one did. Because I think ultimately, as I said, Lansing wants to serve its people.
Yeah.
And the people want to come together to support others. And that's ultimately what happened. But it took coming to court every single week.
Yeah.
And I scheduled my docket for months around this.
Wow.
And, you know, we got what we wanted in the end to get people through the winter. I was told the city council was working on the pods. When push came to shove, it's, well, when are the pods coming? Then I read in the paper, yeah, they've been purchased, but not until spring or later of 2026. And by the way, there's no agreement of where they will be.
Right.
So that was not an option.
Yeah.
And then city council set aside some money for renovation of a building, but are fighting about it. Again, in 2026, maybe 2027, not an option.
Yeah.
It's not an option to let people live in the snow so they get frostbite. They're carted off to the hospital, and this has sadly become the norm. Fingers and toes are cut off, they're released, they go back. That's cruel and unusual punishment right in our hometown.
Yes.
That's a problem for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking with that issue.
Well, I wish I could do more. I did overreach my boundaries. I went way past them. But I didn't know what else to do because we have humans, and I will never treat a human being as garbage or as a nuisance. They're just not. And they were allowed to be there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Even if you're a holdover in an apartment, you get some time to get your things together. We just don't put you out the next day.
Right. Yeah. So my understanding of government, and it is not the best, but here we go. The judiciary branch of government is pretty reactionary. Like you're not the one setting the rules. You're the one seeing the fallout of how the rules are applied. And you're constantly gaining perspective and knowledge of how society has these ills and how they're handled on a personal case-by-case basis. Do you have a way to pass feedback up to the executive and legislative branches based on what you have seen? Is there something like that? Is it working? How could it be better?
Well, first it has to exist. And I have gone over to the legislature and testified multiple times. I had one legislator after the last time I testified about a year ago and I said, I'm tired of coming to you. Why aren't you ever coming and asking a judge what we see, what we need? And I had a list of about 28 bill requests. And so I did have one legislator that came over. I haven't seen anything yet, but hopefully it's in the works, and I'm going to follow up on that. But the fact is that they should be calling judges when they have the need for a bill request. They can put in, I worked over there, and of course this was many, many moons ago. I think it's 3 bill requests a month unless they've changed it. And I used to work for a state senator who every single month put in all of his bill requests and said, if I don't have one, you fill it in and you figure it out. And so I did. And I don't know why staffers, legislators are not contacting judges and saying, we have some bill requests. What would you like us to put in? What is the need? Because we deal with people from all walks of life, civil, criminal, all sorts of issues, and they don't ask us, and we are a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And they could ask a couple of judges. We don't all agree on what's needed, but depending on, what committees they are, what their passion is, if they're truly representing the people, ask the judges, not just in Ingham County, but around this, around Michigan, but around the United States. We are overlooked when it comes to any mayor, any governor, any senator, representative, even at the U.S. representative level. Why haven't they talked to us? What are the people saying? We represent the people. I'm elected to serve the people. So are they.
Yeah.
In different capacity, but I have to interpret what they do. And sometimes what they do is a knee-jerk reaction that they created without our input. So our interpretation may not fit with what they wanted, and they create holes. I have ruled that some of the legislation, like when the marijuana legislation was going through, I think 3 times I found it unconstitutional. They had to fix it each time.
Oh my gosh.
Perhaps if they would have come and talked to judges ahead of time,
Yeah.
maybe they would have saved time and taxpayer dollars.
For sure. Let's work together, everybody. Yeah. And yes, thank you. Thanks for that. My last opening question. At the beginning of each council meeting, those in attendance rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which famously ends with liberty and justice for all. And personally, I've been struggling with those words because I am not seeing liberty and justice for all. And our country has never followed through on that promise. How can we maintain a sense of our patriotic values when we're struggling to see them in action?
Well, first of all, that's a systemic problem for all of us. It really is one that I agree with you on totally, but it has to start with each individual who should be a registered voter and should be an informed voter, because it's not liberty and justice for all when you keep re-electing people who don't care about your community, who care about their name ID in their pockets and getting a headline in the paper.
Yeah.
It really has to be about justice and liberty for all, with legislators and everybody you elect has to care, and they don't. And they also have to have the right training and background. So if you have a legislator who's never read the Constitution, why are you electing him? If you have a judge who's never actually been in a courtroom and practiced, why are you electing them? I mean, what's the background training? Why should they be there? What are they going to do for you? And you should ask them every single time they say, can I have a lawn sign? Will you vote for me? Will you come to a fundraiser? And there are really cheap and free fundraisers because legislators want your vote. Attend, ask them questions, get informed. There's so much information out there, League of Women Voters, and so many people the unions put out these great informational things, the MEA, all sorts of places. Read them. If you can't read, ask someone to read it to you. Go to some debates, ask for debates. Without that, we are not going to have liberty and justice for all. It's going to be for the few who want those people who serve only their purpose to be elected.
Right. What I'm hearing from you that I really like is we're all responsible to have liberty and justice for all. We can't just rely on others to provide that. That's something we have to hold and bring forward in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. How many people complain, and then if you say to them, did you vote? Well, I don't believe in voting. Well, then do not complain, please.
I hear you. Let's get into talking about what the people we voted for in the city are up to. You ready to talk about the meeting?
Oh, what a meeting.
5.5 hours. It was great. So we're at the March 23rd meetings. We're starting with the Committee of the Whole, all council members present. We have Ryan Cost representing the 1st Ward, Dianera Navarez-Martinez of the 2nd Ward, Adam Hussein of the 3rd Ward, Peter Spatafor, the council president of the 4th Ward. Our at-large members are Tamara Carter, Jeremy Garza, Clara Martinez, and Council Vice President Trini Pelivanoglu. Also at the meeting, we have Greg Venker, the city attorney, and Sherry Boak, the recording secretary, and Mark Lawrence, the mayor's chief of staff. So let's talk about the data center first. Let's just get right into it.
That was the highlight of the meeting.
Yeah.
That was very interesting conversation.
Yes. And the bulk of the data center was during the regular meeting, and also at the regular meeting we have the mayor and we have the city clerk, Mayor Andy Shore. So I'm going to start with the public comments, and I counted 51 comments. So I'm going to start with the people who are in favor of the data center. And somebody says, I'm going to give you some facts. This parcel has been underutilized for 2 decades. The money from the data center will come to the city and pay for infrastructure. And BWL is trying to modernize their hot water system, and Deep Green is going to help pay for that. We're going to get a lot out of this deal. There's no other, there are other communities in Michigan who are struggling with these data centers, and none of those other communities have the agreement that we have. We have a really strong agreement with these Deep Green folks. They're promising a lot. They're following through on everything that we're asking for. So there were 2 representatives of the plumbers and pipe fitters unions, and they're saying these are jobs. They're promising jobs, even temporary jobs we need. And they're saying there's going to be a 20-year service agreement built into the contract. Let's not sniff our noses at this. Somebody from the Board of Fire Commissioners says, I'm in favor of this sale. I appreciate the concerns being raised, but they're misplaced. This is an appropriate sized, responsible building. It will provide a stable tax base increase. We've got 2 data centers in the city already. Nobody's throwing a big controversy about them. Sorry, just to back up 1 minute, the mayor, in the mayor's comments, he talks about how the budget is being presented to council. So mayor's in charge of the budget for the city. So he's presenting the budget to council, and he's like, I'm going to present 2 budgets. One, our normal budget, and one, if the data center goes through, there's going to be all this extra stuff. And that's going to include $400,000 for housing, $600,000 for some firefighter equipment. Okay. And he's saying we need that firefighter, extra firefighter equipment. The call volumes to the fire department have increased by 35%. So this is going to be good.
Okay. It's only as good as if it's implemented. And for example, the housing, what housing is that? Is it new housing? Is it housing for the homeless? And $400,000 doesn't get you much of a house.
Right.
I mean, there are houses in our community that are $400,000, one house. How is that going to be spent? What's the commitment? What is the consequence of them not following through? Because promises are made, they are broken all the time, and I'm very concerned about where's that money coming from going, and what's the fallout, and if it falls apart, which we've seen. I mean, the state has had similar kinds of programs, the Economic Development Commission, and they promised a lot of money to Michigan. And they did bring some, but those contracts didn't always provide the jobs they said.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and who's following up on that?
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of jobs are these? How long are they going to last?
Right.
What happens if this fails?
Yeah.
If this fails, we have misplaced our trust, but also displaced a whole lot of people who will be out work, and now we're going to have a bigger homeless population or a bigger surge of people leaving the county. I don't know.
Right.
And of course, nobody has a crystal ball, but I'd like to see some more details on how's the money going to be spent, what's the guarantee, where's the profit going, and then where's the money being spent? Because anytime there's a dollar spent, a certain percentage goes into the pocket of someone.
For sure. Yep. So now I'm going to talk about what people said when they are against the data center. Somebody says, I am an engineer, and I'm happy to give some of the dividends of this project to the fire department because they will likely have to put out a new type of fire that's going to come with these solid fuel cells that they're going to use to create the energy on the data center.
I heard that. I thought that was really sort of brilliant.
Yeah.
Because if this comes to fruition,
yeah,
and there is a problem, we're going to need more responders, and they're going to have specialized training.
Right.
And probably they need to do some practice runs, like we all have fire drills. They need to have some practice ones over there, which is going to cost dollars, training, manpower, recruitment.
And the city, it will cost the city those dollars, I would think.
Well, yes, it will cost the residents of Lansing, and tax dollars will go up. And I don't know that the city residents can pay those.
Right. And I want to explain a little bit what this issue is about. So originally, in my understanding, when Deep Green came to present about the data center, they said, we're not going to be needing, we're going to use all of the Board of Water and Light's existing surplus energy. So the Board of Water and Light has a surplus of energy. We're going to use that, and that's it. It's going to be great. But then they were like, no, we actually need more than what BWL's surplus is. So we're going to use 8 megawatts from BWL, but we'll need 16 extra for a 24 megawatt facility, and that 16 extra will generate ourselves on site. So we're going to put a power plant on site co-located with the data center. And the fuel that we're going to use is solid cell natural gas. That doesn't make sense, does it? It's something solid gas. Yeah. Now I'm getting confused. Yeah. But
well, we're not scientists, and there's so much to this. I mean, taking a deep dive is going to take months because it takes a lot of training. And as they said,
right,
there's a lot of very specially trained people who've come together to put this together.
Right.
I have to say, first of all, I was a commissioner on the Board of Water and Light for several years, and I love the Board of Water and Light because they're just a great place to work. And they really do care about our community. They take good care of their people, and that extends then outward because those people in that workforce who are well taken care of also care more about our community.
Sure.
So I do trust the Board of Water and Light being involved in this. Mm-hmm. I am concerned, though, when they have a surplus, there's a reason for their surplus. If we are taking that away, what happens?
Yeah.
And I didn't hear any discussion on that.
Yeah,
nor do I know what's going to happen there. And so if that's taken away, someone else is using it plus, how does that all configure?
Right. Yeah.
And what happens if there's a break? Mm-hmm. And we need the surplus. Our Board of Water and Light needs that surplus. Is that a problem? What problems does it create? What's the fix? Can we fix it quickly?
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
That's a really good question because you're right. Like energy needs will fluctuate naturally, and I'm sure that they have some understanding of how those needs fluctuate. But you know, what's the greatest like peak they've seen, and are they projecting that again?
Right. Board of Water and Light doesn't do things just because it's there. They have a reason, a scientific, educated reason. So that surplus not being there, that's a big question mark for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting back to the natural gas power plant, they're like, we're going to do this in a way that isn't like a normal natural gas power plant. We're going to be doing this like solid fuel burning, which is like more efficient, but it's not done in Michigan. So it's like a little bit, not that it's untested, but there's like nothing like it here. And there's some question of will this be categorized as clean fuel or not? And that gets to BWL's like energy goals. They have to have so much clean energy by, I think, 2040. So anyways.
Well, let me ask you this, because you might know the answer and I don't. But as I was listening to this, and of course I haven't read all the probably thousands and thousands of pages of reports, I also have concerns about it being located so close to people. Is there anything that might leach out and cause cancer that we're going to find out about in 50 years or 30 years or whatever? I might be dead.
Right.
But my family's probably going to still be here, right? And I've got friends that'll still be down here working.
Yeah.
What is the health, if any, concerns? So I don't want to sound like I'm super opposed to this. I think anytime you bring business and jobs and safety and new technology is great.
Yeah.
But we really have to be super informed, not an experiment.
Yes. And I think that's a great point. And I think what Deep Green would say is we haven't really heard from a lot of third-party environmental experts who have done a deep dive on exactly what they're proposing there. And I think what Deep Green would say is, well, we don't even have a purchase agreement yet. Like we're still in the beginning. Like that's going to come later. Like the environmental assessment will come later. Like
No, that is backwards. You've got to have the environmental assessment up front before the contracts are signed and before we go too far. And it has to be done. It's going to be expensive, but they should pick up the tab. They said they would on all these things.
Right, yeah.
As my understanding. And that environmental assessment, that would help sway me more toward it. Right now I'm sort of on the fence, right?
Yeah.
But I think people need to know because we can't afford a health crisis because of this.
Right. Yeah. And one of the council members did say, oh, tell me about the science. Like, tell me how sound the science is. And they were like, oh, yeah, we've got a fleet of our own scientists doing this work. Like, of course it's fine.
Yes. It has to be an independent environmentalist. And, I think there's a different aspect of just the science of it, because the science of how it works and everything is one thing.
Sure.
But the environmental and health issues is totally different and is a different type of environmental expert. We used to be the court of claims, and I heard a lot of environmental cases. And it's very, very, very specialized. And it's nothing I could even fathom to want to learn about except in front of me when I have to, as it applies to a case. And so it is so very time-consuming, complex, but it needs to be done now, not later. And I think if it was, maybe people would settle in that they want it or they don't want it.
Right. Yeah. Give us an independent assessment for sure. Somebody says, okay, so this data center is not going to be as bad as the rest. Well, I don't want to eat a bowl of chili with a little bit of spit in it.
Right. And I think that gets down to all the questions we still have that have not been answered. And they say, well, they're coming and we have experts and we have this and that. Well, let's not go down that road. Get some independent studies to review what they have and then make that recommendation to the people and to the council members.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody else says we need to be thinking long term. Is this going to be good for our community in 50 years? I've been working in environmental issues for a long time. And once we get rid of this land, we're not going to be able to get it back. Is this in line with the plans and the goals we have for environmental protection? How does this fit in with the plans that we already have in place? There's some folks from MSU there saying that we care about Lansing too, and it's a tragedy that the organized labor folks are forced to come here and speak against their neighbor in order to put food on their table. We need to be building resilience in our local economy, not speculative tech growth.
Well, here's something I thought about as I was listening to all these various comments is and Michigan has a lot of wetlands. And there's a specific law that says if you're going to destroy a wetland, you're going to create one. So if we're going to destroy green space, then we need to create some. And there's certainly enough space where it has housing that's abandoned or other buildings that are abandoned where they could create some beautiful green space.
Yes.
And so then we would get rid of some other kinds of problems. So why is that not being first and foremost on the table? If you're taking something, put it back.
Sure.
Just like with the wetlands, it's state law. Why isn't it county rules?
Yes, and that's great. And that gets a little bit to something that was brought up by some youth. So there were 4 speakers from an organization called Peace and Prosperity Youth Action Movement.
Which I loved. I have to give them a shout out because when you get youth involved in government and confident enough to speak,
they spoke so well.
Right? And I thought, yay, because those are the next legislators. Those are the next people who will become lawyers and, successful business people and will vote.
Yes.
With intelligence.
Those are the ones.
Those are the ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were like, we have spent time researching data centers, and we urge you to create a community benefits agreement for this project to include some of those things to make sure like we're having a well-rounded approach here to what's happening. The youth will inherit the fallout from these decisions.
And the expense and the health problems. And I think rightfully so, they're recognizing that. I thought that what they said was really brilliant because they're saying, I want to stay in this community. I want to raise my family here.
Yeah.
But I can only do that if you do the right things now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want our young people to leave because we did the wrong things.
Right. And a lot of people were saying that they're saying, I'm invested in this community. This is where I live. This is where I want to be. Like, take into account what's happening, what's the impact going to be for the people in this community. Someone says, my friend and I knocked on the doors of people who lived within like a half mile of this because it is a residential area. And many said that they had not even heard about this project. You're making this decision without informing the residents who will be directly impacted.
Which is interesting because when the Department of Transportation, who does our roads, the road builders, when they come into a neighborhood and they want to plow through a neighborhood or create a cul-de-sac or, and open that up to a road or whatever, they have to get the input and have meetings from every neighbor who lives there.
Right.
And they haven't done that. That's also a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a plan to pay them for moving if they so choose to move out of the area because they are frightened? Because really, the nuisance, so to speak, is moving to them. They didn't move to the nuisance.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody says... Somebody brought up the 496 project. Also for that project, many business leaders and workers were championing the economic growth this project would bring, and the city is getting ready to vote on a similar issue. I'm sure the chamber will forgive you for voting no, but will the residents forgive you for voting yes? So,
I thought that was also a brilliant comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone says, people vote for morals or money. I would like to hear from someone who doesn't have skin in this game. Let's go hang out at a data center is something that no one says. Someone else is like, I'm a marketing and design professional. It is clear that Deep Green is trying to sell us something that we don't need. Once they are here, we're not going to be able to kick them out. With the budget proposal, you're just dangling a carrot. Yes, someone says, I see in council as the years of public service goes on, you may have entered with one set of values, and as you move further in the system, you move further away from the people you say that you are going to serve.
I think the overall tone of what you've read and what I heard last night was stop looking at money over the safety of people.
Yes.
And the health needs and the environment.
Yes.
Money goes away, but the people will still be here. You'll be creating problems. So let's address those ahead of time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just going to read this one last comment that I loved. Said that at its best, AI is a terrible plagiarizing machine. And if this is the only way we can think of to make money as a city, just take my tax dollars and bet them on a horse. Horse betting as an industry isn't threatening to take down the entire world economy.
Yeah, that was funny.
Great. Then there's a presentation from Deep Green again. And they say thank you to Councilmember Navarez-Martinez because this is their second time at council giving this presentation. Because the last time, new Councilmember Navarez-Martinez was like, hey, it doesn't, like, you're breaking the rules having applying for a zoning change before you own the property. Like, this is against city code.
And I think they did give the zoning change already, didn't they?
I don't understand what's going on with the zoning because you're right, this was only for the sale of property. It wasn't for the rezone. So maybe they got that already. I was confused there, but that's a good point. So anyways, they were like, thank you for catching that error. We are happy to strengthen our commitments to the city, and they talk about all the changes to the purchase agreement that are going to make this a better deal for the city, and they're committed to putting up sound barriers around their generators, and they will comply with the existing noise ordinance under the current or like whatever the original zoning was, because the new zoning, the industrial zoning, there is no noise ordinance. So they're like, our bad, we'll be quiet. So here's the questions from council. Councilmember Cost is like, where is the money from this sale going to go? And it's going to go into something called the TIFA, the Tax Increment Finance Authority, which is an area within the downtown that all the property taxes, as I understand this, go to pay off some city debt that they took on to build the convention center and the courts building.
Yes.
You know about the TIFA?
I do know a little bit about the TIFA, but again, I have a fundamental question of if this was not going to happen, have they done something with Tifa that makes it run in a deficit?
Tifa,
because they're using some of this money to fund the Tifa, right?
Right, to pay off.
To pay off.
Yes.
So have they run into trouble? I wondered about that because they were so... I mean, putting money in the Tifa is always a good thing because we're always going to have problems and things to pay off. Mm-hmm. But I wondered, is it needed because there is a problem or not?
My understanding is there's still 20 to 30 million that they're in debt that they're working on paying off, that they through the interest will end up being 50 or 60 million. So the Tifa is in the hole currently.
Yeah, so they made a mistake, and this is one way that they're going to fix it, but it's not going to fill the hole completely.
Correct. That's right.
So, again, that's another kind of red flag of we want this because we're in a hole.
Right.
Okay, does that, and I see a lot of red flags. I also see some green flags, too. Again, we need more information.
Yeah.
They cannot do this knee-jerk reaction because it solves a few minor problems.
Right. I talked about Councilmember Martinez talking about she wants to hear assurances about the science. She said something else that I think really rackled people. She was like, the residents can only speak to their own experiences. And people in the general comments, they were like, Martinez, that was offensive. We can tell the difference between science and marketing. You're gaslighting us. We can also be scientists. We can also look up how things work.
If that comment were true, nobody could comment on what the federal government's doing or what anybody's doing because it lends itself to assume that we are uninformed except about our own lives. And there's a lot of information out there where we can be informed really quickly. Just Google it. Mm-hmm. Go to the library. We have ample ones here. Get informed, and you can certainly become an expert or knowledgeable on any topic you want.
Right. Thank you. Councilmember Garza says if there was a fire with the fuel cells, what would happen? And Bloom, which is the company that they're going to contract to run the fuel cell power plant, a few of their representatives came down and they were like, it's all good. We got this. So that was great to hear. Navarez Martinez was like, for the fire department budget, where is that coming from? Do we need that more money for that equipment just because of this facility? And the mayor is like, no, that's just a general request. We need that stuff anyways. But we couldn't figure out how to put it in the normal budget. So we're only going to get it if the data center thing goes through.
Because it's needed for the data center. Let's get clear on what that is. It wasn't requested, but now it will be needed anticipatorily because of possible problems and safety checks and.
Right.
So let's get real.
Yeah. Councilmember Cost says, you've made all these promises. You've stuck with this, even though we're pushing back hard. What's in it for you? And they were like, we believe that we're the ones who can build the right data center. All these other companies, they are doing it wrong. But we need data centers, and we have the model, and we want to prove that we can do a good job. We're comparing ourselves to the tobacco industry. We don't want to be like them. We want to show that we can build sustainable businesses and infrastructures and help out the community. And Councilmember Koss said, I feel like you just told me that most doctors choose camels.
Yes. So here's what I say when someone in court says, I believe, especially the lawyers, when I ask them a question, they say, I believe. I say, take your beliefs to church. Got evidence? I deal in evidence. So I'd like to say that to the company. I don't care what you believe. Do you have evidence that what you are bringing here works, is safe, and will do what you are promising, or will we be left holding the bag with empty promises, health problems, and a lack of green space?
Yes. Yeah.
Prove it.
Prove it. 100%. Finally, Martinez says, we have this opportunity to have innovation with an international partner and a company that's trying to be bold and dream big. Will this be outdated by the time that it is built? And they believe not.
Again, believe, let's prove, because they have to be, we are growing so quickly with tech that they have got to be able to answer what's going to happen a year from now and 10 years from now. Otherwise, we are being sold an old computer.
Yes.
And that cannot happen in our community. We have enough things that we've got to fix.
Right.
We can't have something that becomes a fix or repair daily or yearly.
And just something that we're going to have to be worrying about. Just like another worry for people.
Right.
Seems unnecessary.
Absolutely.
Okay. New topic. Ready?
Okay. Hit me with it.
So there's the Compensation Commission.
Yes.
And their job is to come up with the pay for the mayor, the clerk, and the council. And the council president and vice president make a little bit more than the regular folks,
yes.
regular council members. So they've come up with their recommendations. And it's a 5% increase for the mayor, a 5% increase for the clerk, and 3.5% for the council. Councilmember Cost says, I want to reject this. Many people who I represent have not gotten pay raises, and I don't think it's fair for me to take one when others don't.
That's the legislative log line in every legislature. I worked over in the Senate. They did the same thing. That's just so that he knows it's going to pass. However, the people will feel that, he at least stood up for something. And I do know of a legislator or two way back in the day when I worked there where they gave raises to legislators who said, I'm not going to take it. We'll put it in some kind of fund or whatever. Mm-hmm. That didn't last long, by the way. So I think it's interesting. But here's what the real issue is. And when I was on the commission, it was Mayor Hollister was actually paid less than 3 or 4 of his staff members who had been there a long time and had been wondering, about the pay structure, because within an organization there's always questions. Am I going to get a raise? Why is he getting paid more than me? This and that. So what we did is I had suggested, let's go to like communities and see what they are. So we went to half a dozen different communities, and we all sat and looked at the figures and then did comps. And then over the period of time got Mayor Hollister to be the highest paid, because he should be, okay? And then looked at all of that and brought in every person and every council member and said, what do you think? And what do you need, and all of that. Mm-hmm. And ultimately they did get their raises, but it was based on the comps with other communities. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the more fair question, because as a judge, there was a 12-year period that I didn't get a raise at all.
Oh,
now
wow.
we're getting some raises, but I'm not compensated for my value. I'm a community servant, and I do make a good living. I'm not going to complain about that. And there are people who do deserve raises, but I think that each company and each employer needs to stand on their own, and we shouldn't say, well, our constituents are not getting a raise, so we shouldn't, because you should always get paid what you're worth. And I mean from the person who cleans the streets to the governor, or the president. We should all get paid our worth.
Yeah.
And so if you're worth it, take it.
Right.
And if its foundation is solid, because that's what it bears for the job, for your expertise, and is equivalent to those in other communities, then why not take it? Why make a statement knowing, well, you're probably going to pass anyway, so I'm just going to say that so I feel better about myself? Come on.
Yeah. Councilmember Navarez-Martinez says, I appreciate what you're saying, Cost, but the way that this council job is structured, it's part-time, it has weird hours, you're selecting out a huge portion of the population who wouldn't be able to do this job. And if we want regular people to have the opportunity to serve, we have to make it a desirable and sustainable position. And that means making it pay well.
Totally agree with that, because what you have when you devalue the job, you have people who should not take the job. Mm-hmm. They're not trained well. They're just taking it because it's better than their other underpaying job, and they don't really want it. They want it for the pay. Mm-hmm. And so you want those people who are most qualified and have the schedule and have the time commitment and all of that. And it does mean that you have to value them. And what do we value? What have we been talking about? Mm-hmm. It's money. Okay,
sure.
We all need it to live, and if this, data center goes in, we might need more.
Right. For sure. So they do a vote, And Ryan Cost and Adam Hussein vote against the pay raise. Everyone else is for it, so it goes through.
Because they counted the votes ahead of time, and they knew that. That is not new in any legislative body.
So then they're setting some public hearings for parking changes. So metered parking, they had some sort of consultant come in and give them some advice. And based on that advice, they're going to change the metered hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you're going to be able to park for free from 8 to 9 a.m.
Who cares? I mean, I don't know. Make it 7, make it 9, make it 10. I don't know. Is that really going to change who comes downtown? I don't think so.
Yes. Also, they're saying that you can pay your ticket by midnight instead of within 2 hours for a reduced rate, and they're adding a virtual payment option.
That I agree with.
Yes. So there's a proposed move of a sheltered care facility. So there's one shelter currently on Larch. They're not doing great in their current location, so they want to move to 332 Townsend, which is just north of the county court. And they're saying we're going to be closer to where the Downtown Rescue Mission has relocated to that area. They gave a presentation on this at the last meeting, so they want a land use change and a zoning change to be able to make this move to the new building that they have. Council is fine with that. That goes through. Best dressed. Are you ready to hear my awards for best dressed?
Oh, sure.
Great. Did you see anyone who you were like, oh, I like that outfit?
You know, I really didn't. I was so focused on what they were saying. I didn't care what they wore. I just want them to show up. Like, if you show up in a T-shirt, I'm fine as long as you've done your homework, right?
My favorite outfit was a commenter with phoenix red hair. She had fun two-tone white glasses, white and black rim glasses, a kind of a 60s flower garden vibe, colorful T-shirt with like a wonky black and white staircase thing. And then when she left, she had a Muppet green, oversized, fuzzy coat. And she walked with a cane.
Oh, that's sweet.
Honorable mention goes to the commenter wearing her funeral outfit to mourn the loss of our autonomy to the AI overlords. One commenter had a bubblegum pink captain's hat. And I also want to give a nod to the clerk intern. So the sheets where people sign up for public comment, there's blue sheets and there's yellow sheets. And someone was like, oh, she's matching the sheets because she had a yellow sweater and then she had a blue coat over that. So
interesting.
She's dressing for the job.
But I think it should be green and white. Why are you choosing U of M's colors? We're green and white, aren't we?
Well, the mayor likes the Michigan regular, University of Michigan. But certainly black was the color of the evening. There was a lot of black. Okay, I'm going to jump back up really quick to the main issue that was at the committee of the whole. And this was the person who is operating the Lansing Shuffle. Do you know the Shuffle? So there's Rotary Park, there's the Jackson National Life building. That's like really beautiful brick building. And then on the east side of the Grand River, there's like a park and there's a river trail. And then there's a building there that used to be like a farmer's market. Like a long time ago, it used to be a farmer's market.
Yes, I recall.
And then it like wasn't, and then the city was like, we're bringing it back, and then it didn't work.
Right.
And so then they were like, somebody else help us, and then this person came in and was like, I'm here to do this. And so he renovated that building. So in the 2010s, when the city was like, we're going to do a market again, I guess they paid like $1.7 million to make it like a barn-like structure. And then this guy came in and he was like, I'm going to pour in more money over $4 million to make it like what I think it should be, which is these little restaurants, like a food court kind of thing, like in the mall. Like you've got the 7 vendor stalls for restaurants. So he did that. And when he signed the lease agreement with the city to do this, I guess there was some clause that after a few years, he would have the option to potentially buy the property. And the property here being just the building, not like the whole riverfront park. So the building. So now he's like, I want to do that. So here's some more numbers. So he's currently paying $24,000 a year in property taxes to the city. So that's $2,000 a month. And that goes to the Parks Department because the property is on Parks land. The proposed sale is a little under $1 million. It's $953,000, and that was written into the lease contract. After the sale, should it happen, they would be paying $29,000 a year in property tax, and that would go again to the TIFA. So it would not go to parks anymore. It would go to the TIFA. But what's happening is, since it is parks property, for there to be a sale of parks property, it has to go through a ballot initiative. So what the city council wanted to do is vote to put it on the ballot for the August ballot. Okay? But some people were like, hey, you're ramming this through. Like, the Parks Advisory Board hasn't had a chance to weigh in on this. Like, let's wait and hear what the Parks Board has to say. And so before the meeting even started, they were like, okay, we'll table this. But people were already there fired up. So they were like, okay, so here's some comments. So the Parks Advisory Board president was there, and he was like, thank you for tabling this. We had a presentation on this at our last meeting, but we had a lot of unanswered questions. So we decided to wait to take a vote on this. Nobody told us that this was going to be at council.
Well, so they didn't provide notice under the Open Meetings Act. They had to, so they didn't read. I mean, that is interesting, although maybe they wanted more notice and more detail. That would be fair.
Yeah, I'd have to look back to see if it was on previous council agendas. That's a good point. We're a citizen advisory board that we do this work to advise you on parks-related matters, like do us the courtesy of listening to our opinion. It hasn't been demonstrated to us how this sale will benefit the city or the Parks Department. I'd like to see an independent appraisal done so we'll know how much we're missing out on. Like, even though the sale agreement was like put in the lease, like, we should still know what the value is.
So, you know, it begs the question, when this contract was put together, did the Parks Committee know and anticipate this sale? What was the comment there? Did they go back and look at the history? Because there's a contract there. So there was a meeting of the minds, right?
Yeah.
And that's curious, because what they're going to do, or what they're saying, is we might want to renege on our agreement. And I don't know that they can.
Right.
So it depends. I haven't read the contract, but
yeah,
if that were to come into court, I mean, the issue would be, was there a meeting of the minds? And certainly we can't rescind the agreement. It's been years now. And so what was anticipated? What was that history? Have they dug into that?
Yeah.
And so that's really, first and foremost, what they need to look at, besides, oh, we want to spend more money doing an assessment. And they might have their hands tied by the contract.
Yeah. People came up and were like, I love the shuffle. It's bringing so much fun stuff to downtown. I like to eat out there. Like, I'm going to hold my wedding reception there. Like, we need more stuff like this. We can't let this slip through our fingers. It brings a lot of benefit to the community. A representative from the Downtown Lansing Inc. was there, saying that this person has invested and believes in Lansing. They've been a good community partner. They've done boxed meals for events and some volunteering, and we should support them the way they have supported us. The president of the Community Foundation, which is a nonprofit that has poured a lot of money into downtown in the form of, like, investing in parks downtown. So they're the ones behind the reimagining of the Fish Ladder Park, Rotary Park, which is the one right there next to the Shuffle Building. So they put in, like, a beach park, and there's, like, lighting. And also Play Michigan, which is a playground that was built specifically for people with different levels of ability. And those have all been great successes.
Great.
Like, they're doing a lot of great work. They're like, Lansing Shuffle is great. They're really helping us out. People are going to the Shuffle. We've met the term. They have met the terms of their agreement so far, so we should allow them to follow up.
I have to say, I did not know they do weddings, and I perform a lot of weddings around, and as a judge, of course, and I haven't done one there, so I'm going to look forward to maybe doing a wedding over there.
Okay. What's your favorite place to do a wedding in Lansing?
Oh, geez. There are some places, there's some parks, both in downtown that I've done weddings, as well as in Holt and in Mason, that are just beautiful venues. And, you know, we have this terrible gray in the winter, but our spring, summer, and fall is beautiful in the parks.
Yeah.
And so any park is beautiful for a wedding. And I think that speaks volumes to our community. And they've just been some great, great weddings.
So some council questions. Councilmember Garza says, if this sale doesn't go through, will they still continue to operate their business there? And will you still be successful? And the developer says, well, it's hard to define success. It would be difficult. There's a lot of post-COVID expenses rising. So it's been hard. Slim margins. So Councilmember Hussein is like, I also think that we should have an appraisal. Like, what's going on with the appraisal? I don't understand. And he's like asking this to Attorney Venker, the city attorney, and he's like, I'm a lawyer, not an assessor.
But again, the contract would have done that way back and hopefully took the value and then sort of anticipated an increase, years later. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they're entitled to that. They need to really look at the contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Councilmember Martinez asked the parks director who was there and asked, do you see a negative impact on the parks if the sale goes through? And he's like, no. We've seen, great investment by them. They've kept their promises so far, so I think it would be fine. Spatafor says we have a little bit of negotiating in the sale agreement besides just the price. Like, we can do a little maneuvering, but that would be after the ballot proposal went through. So if the voters said yes or no.
And it's going to take some educating. Look at how long we've talked about it. It's going to take some educating of the people, because if they don't know about it, they're just going to vote no. So there's going to have to be some money put in to educate the public on what this ballot proposal actually means to them.
100%. And two of the council members do bring that up. They're like, we've seen other things gone to ballot that haven't been well explained on the ballot and have failed, even though it would have made a lot of sense to the majority of the residents. And I think the hotel tax was like an example that was given. And one of them is like, you have unpaid city taxes. Like, nobody should be allowed to enter into these agreements if they're like not up on their taxes. Like, what's going on there? And the developer is like, oh, we had some accounting changes. Like, I didn't know about it. Like, I just found out about the unpaid taxes. Like, my bad. So pretty much it. A few little wrap-up things. The council had some negotiations with some of their union labor leaders, and they renegotiated their contracts. The union folks who work for the city are going to get a 3% raise, and there will be a $750 signing bonus. One person was appointed to the Saginaw Street Corridor Improvement Authority Board. He's excited to serve the community. There was a comment by Council Vice President Pelivanoglu saying that she's recognizing the victims who have come forward with sexual assault allegations against labor rights organizer Cesar Chavez.
Yeah, that's a huge disappointment around the globe.
Yeah. She says we want to stand with the victims, but the fight for labor rights is bigger than one person, and we shouldn't erase history, but revise it with an eye towards accountability. Somebody who has a business along Cesar Chavez, which used to be Grand River, this person was like, I didn't want this name change. And this name change has been really annoying for me because the accents have been added to the name of the road, but in a lot of places where you're typing in the address, you can't type in the accent. So there's really two addresses, and also there's the E, and makes it seem like it's the east side of the road, but there's no east. So he was very mad about that. But he was mainly there to talk about the principal shopping district, which is a tax zone, and they're seeing a 3% increase in their taxes, and he doesn't think that he should be included in that zone because it's sort of like a gerrymandered add-on that he's on that's just down that Cesar Chavez road. Anyways, yes. So I talked about that. That's it. That's the thing. That's the meeting. Yeah.
And I just want to say on that, anything gerrymandered is suspect. So they need to take another look at that, because we don't like gerrymandering. That is just
Yeah.
totally suspect, and there's a lot of laws about that, so he may be correct. I haven't seen it, but that's an interesting take on it.
I thought that was actually interesting because I put together a map. I tried to put together a map of all the issues that are coming up in the council meeting, and the first map I saw of that change to the principal shopping district, it did have that like little gerrymandered thing, and then in the one that was in the packet for this one, it was out. So I was like, oh, maybe they took that out. But it sounds like they just didn't bother to like put it into that version of the map that they sent out. I don't know.
You know, we're on notice state, and so they need to provide notice. That's very confusing, but anything gerrymandered needs to be reconsidered, looked at, and restructured.
For sure. Thank you for listening to this podcast, everyone. This is a listener-supported podcast. And if you want to support this project, you can go to Patreon. And on there, you can see the bingo that I do for the meetings and the issue maps. And I want to thank a new member who has joined since the last episode, Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. It's $5 a month or more. You can always pay more monies.
Good to know.
The next meeting will be in 2 weeks on April 6th. Our guest will be Rebecca Ferguson, previously Douglas, and she is the president of the Rio Town Commercial Association Board. Judge Aquilina, would you like to give any shout outs for any groups or events or anything you want to say?
Oh, geez. You know, I would just want to shout out our community for coming together and supporting those homeless so that we could find them housing. And I hope that we continue to partner together so that we can eradicate the homeless situation totally, because it is really an embarrassment to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think we need to help people rise above, and no one in this community should be standing alone. So there's my pitch for all people. Let's partner together and support each other.
Thank you. And there was one comment that I didn't mention. Someone was like, I've been working with that population when they moved to the Causeway Bay, and we have gotten one person into stable housing. So celebrating that.
Well, let's celebrate the small wins, but let's get them bigger every day.
For sure. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful to hear from you. So much insight, and share it out. You know, I hope those legislators start listening to you.
Well, one day at a time. I just keep being a nuisance. When you want something done, just be a nuisance.
Love
be
it.
the naysayer.
Love it.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way. Thank you to the Public Media Center for letting us record with you, and thanks everyone for listening.